No one is talking about how the weather is going to affect these games. It's supposed to snow. I assume the Eagles are wearing their home greens, right? Whatever that shade of green
so,
is.
Yes.
Pardon me, Philly fans.
I love that Kelly green.
All right. Is it a Kelly green? And
the
Rams will be wearing their white uniforms right in the snow. I always think about this at Boise State, by the way.
Camouflage.
This is what I'm talking about. Really, like we never talk about this, but because we don't talk about like stupid things like this usually. But is it stupid? Because when Boise State plays at home, there are times where I feel like the quarterback misses their receivers because it camouflages.
Can't see the safeties. Two biggest home field advantages: college football. Camouflage Boise in blue, camouflage Oregon in green.
The only back-to-back winner of the Hilton Super Contest. For those joining us on Sirius XM 158 for the first time, the Hilton Super Contest, it's now the Westgate, was the granddaddy of all contests. Handicapping, football, NFL football handicapping contests here in Vegas. It has existed for 30 years almost at this point. And Steve Fezzik is the only person to have won it back-to-back. He joins us now in studio. How you doing, man?
Soon to be a pioneer, probably in a couple of years, right?
Will you also say, like Bob, you're like, I don't want to be called a pioneer. Legend does fine for me. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I saw... Derek was talking about, it's great to have the old guys like Steve Fezzik and, in a contest just hanging around. And now they're starting to say, how are you doing today, young man? I'm getting old.
All right, there's many things we got to get to. The first of all is I love when you have this, you will admit, maybe you won't, but will you admit that you have a bit of a craw in your, I don't know what the expression is, but this bothers you about the Gambling Hall of Fames. And you texted, you said, Rufus Peabody, who was just on the show with us, has made millions bets more than anybody I know, not in the Gambling Hall of Fame. This bothers you.
Well, there's two of them. The Spanky Hall of Fame is good. The other one is just like the Administrator Paper Pusher Hall of Fame.
Right.
Think about this.
Rufus will get in the Hall of Fame
if you had a poker Hall of Fame, would you put in... Hey, let's put in all these poker room managers, right? Because they're critical to the success of poker. Phil Ivey, you're going to have to wait a little while. Mike Manisau, no, not
That's
quite.
A great point.
Not quite good enough body of work, but we'll get all the poker room managers in there. And that's really, my problem. Like a guy like Alan Boston that I've had a truculent relationship with. Obviously, Alan belongs in the Hall of Fame. What's the guy got to do?
Remember when Cosell called Ali truculent, and Ali's response was, "I don't know what that means, but if it's good, I'm it." Something like that. Yeah, truculent. You're truculent. Okay, the other thing you want to say here, you said no one is talking. First of all, I object to that because we were just talking about it earlier. You said no one is talking about how the weather is going to affect these games. Well, wait, I threw it out as a question earlier. You say specifically how it's going to help Buffalo against Baltimore, and especially Kansas City and Philly in their respective games. Okay.
Yeah,
what's your angle there?
It's funny. I got like the Rob Pizzola group saying Fezzik's got Alzheimer's, and he's like he gets caught up on this stuff like weather, and it really doesn't matter at all in our models. Did you watch the Miami Kansas City playoff game last year when Miami was shivering on the sideline?
They would immediately probably respond if I could just sort of guess what they would respond. Well, that's Miami, they would say.
Sure. Well, last time I checked, let me check the map. Houston. A soft dome team in southern Texas, it's probably not advantageous for them to head to Kansas City.
But not Baltimore.
Now, here's where, maybe I'm a little crazy. Old guy, get off the lawn. Baltimore, it gets cold in the wintertime. It gets in it gets in the 20s. You know what? In Buffalo, it gets down to 0 all the time, and it's going to be frigid in Buffalo. I will argue that's an advantage for Buffalo. Not as much as facing Houston, but certainly. And obviously, the beach kids in L.A. that had to just fly to Arizona. Felica talked about this, and I think he was spot on. Really bad spot. Have to go to Arizona, fly back on Tuesday, distractions from the fires. Now you got to fly to Philly on Friday.
Don't you and I have a dinner on this game?
We do. Where are we going? We go Nobu? I love Nobu. Like people say, I'm like so negative about stuff. Nobu does everything right at Caesars.
I didn't mean to break your flow, but can I ask you a question that we never talk about? So it's supposed to snow, right? A little bit. I assume the Eagles are wearing their home greens, right? Whatever that shade of green is.
Yes.
Pardon me, Philly fans.
I love that Kelly green.
All right, is it a Kelly green? And the Rams will be wearing their white uniforms right in the snow. I always think about this at Boise State, by the way.
Camouflage.
This is what I'm talking about. Really, like we never talk about this, but because we don't talk about like stupid things like this usually. But is it stupid? Because when Boise State plays at home, there are times where I feel like the quarterback misses their receivers because it camouflages.
Can't see the safeties.
The blue,
Two biggest home field advantages: college football, camouflage Boise in blue, camouflage Oregon in green.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So could it be a detriment to the Rams? I'm just sort of throwing out every possible. We've done a week on these games. I figured I'd throw this one out as well.
It's interesting. I've never heard a team from LA that would benefit from the snow, but that's interesting. But I wasn't even aware the Rams were going to wear their white, but it would make complete sense. Anyone who saw Die Hard 2.
Oh, that's true. I'm wrong. It's the Eagles who are going to wear their whites at home.
Oh, then the Eagles would have the edge.
Don't the Eagles wear their greens at home? Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not up on it, but anyone who saw Die Hard 2 knows that everyone's wearing white. In the snowstorm, you couldn't see the terrorists. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I just think for a week we talk about these 4 games. You have to think about all new angles.
Well, the key is if you can find one angle, one like the impact of the weather that no one else is pricing correctly, you can assume everything else is being priced correctly. Hey, I am on the Eagles -6. I want to emphasize, why are the Eagles not getting more love? I get it. They were lousy in September. Both their wide receivers were injured. I would argue these Eagles have been an absolute juggernaut. They haven't played a bad game since September. They played 3 suspect games. They won by 5 or 6 against Jacksonville and Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. They were led by 12 late against Jacksonville, and they lost to your Washington football team in a game that the Eagles had their quarterback knocked out in the first half, and a little bit of a miracle at the end game when A.J. Brown drops the pass that would have sealed the game, and then
Devontae Smith, yes,
and Devontae Smith, thank you, and then and then obviously Jaden Daniels does what he does, and he matriculates down the field just in time. But Blinko fell into Washington. Washington lost the other game by 8, and look at what the Eagles have done. They won in Baltimore by 5. Baltimore's the best regular season team in the NFL. They won in Cincinnati by 17. They beat Pittsburgh by 14. I mean, their resume, they beat the Cowboys twice by 30. They beat the Giants by 28. I mean, you stack it, this is like the 85 Chicago Bears since, October 1st.
Easy with the 85 Bears comparison. All right. 91 Eagles, maybe a more apt comparison. Also great defensive history. Also, Rufus came on and Chris Felica just came on. They had interesting comments to make about the Detroit-Washington game. The high variance of 4th downs, Felica sort of doing that with a field goal under prop of 46.5 yards. You have another creative way to bet that same kind of narrative.
Yes. Now, this is not widely available. Let's go to DraftKings. It's there right now. Punts, under 6.5, -170. Go. We are betting punts under -170. Put it into your betting.
This is not a drill.
Yes, and hit submit. Well, think about this. I mean, Rufus and Felica, both of those guys came on before me.
Yeah.
I'm the great aggregator. No, I did text you along. I've been saying this since early in the week. How are we going to get to 7 punts? Detroit doesn't punt. They go for it on 4th and 5 from midfield. Washington doesn't punt.
Tress Way is stealing a paycheck for Washington.
It's not who cares. I mean, he doesn't even have to show up. Bold prediction, there will be 1 punt in this game.
Wow.
And if there's going to be 1 punt, it's going to go under 6.5. Yes.
Under 6.5 punts. But again, the under 6.5 punts, the under a 46.5 yard field goal is the long. And everything Rufus was saying about sprinkle some on the money line on the Commanders because of if you believe that Washington can cover. Right, you have to have that conviction to begin with. Let's start there. But if you have that conviction, you absolutely should sprinkle some on the money line because the high variance nature gives them that puncher's chance.
You don't even need that conviction. Like Rufus was just saying, hey, I cannot even like Washington plus 9.5. And still. By the way, if you do have a free bet, these are perfect free bets to use. And you're teasing the other guys, the favorites. Protect it. Protect those teasers with free bets plus 400 on the money line in the other direction, and you're probably going to win one or the other because the teams hopefully won't win by 1 or 2.
Steve Fezzik in studio. He's got teasers. Speaking of that, we have teasers to get to in the divisional round and props. That's on the other side. Numbers Game, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Okay, before we get back to your bets, because you have teasers, you have props. You heard our discussion, me and Bill Krackenberger, about tipping. You have an underrated person to tip.
Absolutely. So room attendants. Think about this. You're just handing out 5s and 10s. You're tipping your blackjack dealers 25s like you're Rockefeller. All right?
Yeah.
And then you stay in your room, and then your room attendant has to clean up in it. Think about the mess you left that room in the last time you were in Vegas.
For all those days you spend there.
And you don't leave nothing? I mean, if you're there for 3 days, leave a 20. Better yet, the first night, leave a 10. The last night, leave a 10. Absolutely. They are the hardest working, lowest paid people. And, so often you just forget about them because you don't see them. And they're the ones that are working the hardest for you.
That is 100% a good pro tip. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And it is the most likely to be forgotten, right? Because you often are like, I got to get to the airport, and you forget it. So absolutely, that should be the person. What did you refer to? The room attendant. Very nicely termed.
In the movie, in the book, I think, Super Casino, I think they mentioned, like, when the Lux are open, the maids do want to be called room attendants.
Room attendants.
Some treat with respect.
Yeah,
It's a very, very underrated, important part of your whole Vegas experience.
Male man, male woman likes to be called mail carrier as well. So certain thing as well. I'd like to hear you call it mail carriers from this point forward. All right, teasers this week. What do you got?
So, Rufus talked about the value on the money lines, and I don't disagree, but now think about this. You can play like plus 400, plus 450 on these teams on teasers, on money lines, but the teasers are the opposite of the money lines in a lot of ways, where you're teasing, and right now at DraftKings, Kansas City's minus 8.5. You've got a dynasty. You have a dynasty going on. You've got at quarterback a team going for the third straight championship, playing a very middling, injured, average, soft dome team from the South.
Wow.
Of course you're going to play Kansas City down from 8.5 to 2.5, and you've got some good options as well. You've got those Lions. They're minus 8.5 to minus 9. Got to get the Lions down to minus 2.5 as well. If you want to play Rufus's, plus 440 on the money line also, I mean, they dovetail nicely. It's like in Abrams just wrote this book. I don't have the title of it, that talks about, like, you love when you have two bets that are like hedged against each other.
Dan Abrams.
Yes. A plus for the math. World-class math. Basically, his title of his book should be Always Play Back.
Got to get him on the show.
He's like, Always Play Back is the title of the book. Basically, if you have a break-even bet in one direction and a huge bet in the other direction, you should actually bet the same. It's counterintuitive on both. And just let your bankroll just matriculate, go. And we're going to tease Buffalo from the plus 1.5, that's at DraftKings, up to the 7.5. Do not tease to plus 7. You need to get it up to plus 7.5.
And Buffalo looking for a dance partner specifically, or are you just saying general terms?
We're gonna shove with the Chiefs. We'll put the Chiefs is going to be our key in all our teasers. These are all 2-team, 6-point, minus 120 teasers, and we're gonna do KC Detroit, KC Buffalo.
Okay, what about some props, Mr. Smart Man? What do you got here?
Let's go with the Brown. What can Brown do for you? Let's go to 2 Brown. So I'm very concerned. I'm very pro Eagles, but I'm worried about A.J. Brown. I don't like his interviews where he's been saying, well, my knee is what it is, but I've got good training people, and they'll get me out here. And he had 1 catch for 10 yards last week. So A.J. Brown
He's too busy reading. He's got things to do.
You know what? It's great to see someone multitasking like that. So under 70 receiving yards, and we're going to go Washington's receiver. You know about him.
Oh, De'Ami Brown.
Under the radar, De'Ami Brown has quietly become the number 2 wide receiver for the Washington football team. He got like 87 last week. He's averaged 46 the last 5 weeks, but he did nothing the first half of the year.
Yeah.
So the odds makers are setting his lines based upon year-to-date averages all wrong. De'Ami Brown, it's at, I think FanDuel has this, over 33.5 receiving yards.
So just to be clear, under on A.J. Brown, 70. Over on De'Ami Brown of the Skins, over 33.5.
And if you're driving and get confused, just assume both Browns will get 50 yards, and you'll be good.
There you go. And by the way, I don't know if it is De'Ami Brown the number 2. Obviously, the incomparable Terry McLaurin is your number 1. Is it De'Ami Brown? Is it Olamide Zaccheaus? I don't know if they have a defined number 2.
They're close, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Josh Allen, over 8.5 rush attempts in the Bills-Ravens game.
You know, everyone's been coming on all week, and I agree with it, that the models just don't price these quarterbacks, willing to put their body on the line and run more. And Josh Allen got 46 yards last week, but he didn't run in the second half. He got 1 carry for 4 yards because the game was in hand. This game isn't going to be in hand. This is going to be a dogfight. There's going to be so many plays where he's going to tuck it and pick up 5 yards, 7 yards.
It's still their best play.
It's unstoppable. I mean, he and Mahomes, I couldn't argue with Mahomes over as well. Yes.
Okay. And then college football Monday night. This is a creative way to bet, the Ohio State Notre Dame game. An under, but specifically the first quarter under. Why?
Because when the Super Bowl plays, we always love playing that first quarter under and to start slow. Well, this is the same thing, basically. It's the Super Bowl of college football. They've gone through like a playoff format. Both teams are like, Notre Dame has learned the way to win in advance is to let the other guys screw it up, right? When they play Georgia, it's just don't turn the ball over, take care of the football, and be careful. And Ohio State is the much better team. They know if they don't mess it up, they're going to win the game. So I expect, and Ohio State plays a lot slower than they have in prior years, 0-0 at the end of the first quarter. We're going to get a scoreless first quarter. We're going to go under 10, minus 120. Do not play under 9.5. That 10 is so important.
You just brought up a book recommendation from Dan Abrams. By the way, you can follow Dan at Dr. Raz WSOP, meaning World Series of Poker. Dr. Raz WSOP on Twitter. Dan has a new book out that you love, and we have a question on Twitter from Terry Elkins. Does Fez have books recommendations listed somewhere?
Yes, but Logan Fields is like the greatest sports betting book ever.
That's the 2020
The 2020 Winning at Sports Betting by Logan Fields. It's like How to Win at Sports for Dummies. So if you read the Abrams book, you'll be like, if you went to MIT or Stanford, and like you got an electrical engineering degree like he did, you're gonna love this.
So you
book.
love that kind of thing.
Yes, but if you are like a blackjack dealer, or if you are a car salesman, you're not going to like the Abrams book. You're like, why didn't he put all this math into the appendices?
I don't know, Dan, but he's probably going to object to this characterization.
Not at all. He'll agree.
He'll agree with you?
He even said, like, I probably should have put a lot of that math, which is impeccable, by the way, into the appendices. But Rufus Peabody will love the book. Elihu Feistel will literally, while he's doing his business on the commode, he'll be reading this over and over.
Elihu's got his own books as well.
Elihu
Feistel,
Yes.
And then, so again, 2020 sports betting from
Logan Fields.
Logan Fields is always your big
the greatest sports betting. The odds by Chad Millman is number 2. Documents the Rams' greatest show on turf, World Championship, Joe Lupo at the Stardust, who kicked me out years and years ago for a year, and the incomparable Alan Boston.
Steve, always a pleasure, man. What a football season. We'll see you on Friday.
Thank you, Gilly.
Steve Fezzik, everybody, at Fezzik Sports.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now, absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.